Hello and welcome back everyone to this weekly update on the financial markets. I will cover with you today the main view about the financial markets, and with that we will start with the S&P 500 index, followed by energy or US oil, gold as the main metal and Bitcoin as the main cryptocurrency to give you a broad overview of the markets before we then go in the week in my next video in depth in my single stock portfolio. So let's start direct with the broader outlook with the S&P 500 index on the weekly time frame and then work down to the daily and 4-hour time frame. The S&P 500 index on the weekly time frame, you can see we are still printing higher highs followed by higher lows, but here we see a topping sign that could be a possible turnaround for the long-term uptrend here, at least for that leg. Then, like we all already know, markets move in waves, so that was the up wave. What naturally comes afterwards is a wave to the downside, normally smaller than the leg up, and then continuation. Let's drop one time frame lower to the daily time frame for more details. You can see that we went into a sideways consolidation where price wasn't sure if it should break out to the upside or to the downside, and decided to break to the downside with lower lows and lower highs. So from an uptrend to a sideways stage and then to a downtrend. We're nearing right now the 200-day moving average. That's an important moving average, and a lot of market participants have an eye on that one. So from there on we can see probably some support rising maybe back up to this sideways consolidation before then we maybe roll around again and continue lower. Then the question becomes, will that weekly low here hold as support? We develop a huger sideways range before then breaking higher again. Is that enough of a consolidation to be the pause for this uptrend for continuation, or will we finally see a breakdown and a continuation lower, maybe to the 0.382 Fibonacci retracement level in a combination with the prior all-time high from February 2025 would be also a nice scenario, and the darkest scenario, let's say it like that, I would see is lower prices all the way back down to the weekly uptrend line here. Happens also sometimes, and from there on recovering and then rising again. So what's the message out of that scenario is that I'm currently a bit more bearish than I'm bullish for the broad market. Doesn't mean that some single stocks can't appreciate in wealth and price, but that the main market and most of the stocks in it are declining, not rising anymore. So that speaks for more cautious and for more discipline in taking entries. I wouldn't short that index right now. I got a hedge position. I opened up here after seeing the first dip below, then coming back into the range and seeing here the first signs of rejections lower again. Here I opened up some hedging positions from my long-term portfolio with a knockout certificate placed above the next major swing low here. So if price turns and takes that out, I would lose that hedge. It's an insurance, if you want to say, and you have to pay for being insured. And otherwise, if we decline, that knockout certificate will appreciate in wealth and compensate for the losses in the long-term portfolio. But I will not make a short trade with my interactive brokers account here for speculation for falling prices. Here, that's for my personal use enough to stay then out or more cautious in the market. We drop one time frame lower to the 4-hour time frame. You can see it just only in more detail. The moving averages, the main ones, the 200 moving average, the 50 moving average, and the 10 day, or in this case 4-hour moving average is compressing and breaking down to the downside. So not that bullish of a sign. It should be otherwise in rising markets, so that they cross all to each other up, compress, and then rise higher. You can see in history, if we compressed and broke to the downside, that wasn't a good sign in the past, so it would probably not be a good sign either here. I think that's enough said for the S&P 500 index. Let's switch to US oil. Crude oil on the weekly time frame here, we can see in red solid a monthly downtrend line. That one got broken to the upper side. Since then we moved in an A, B, C pattern on the weekly. Supported by this weekly orange solid downtrend line. That one got finally broken to the upper side after seeing a MACD divergence and a double bottom scenario, let's say it like that. Here the 50-week moving average and 10-week moving average have been crossing to the upper side. That has been a long time, the last time they two did that, and yeah, together with the MACD divergence and yeah, this weekly support zone, the downtrend that could have been a catalyst for this breakout. That was news driven event, like you all know, so that steep is more normal breakout. But yeah, there have been signs also at the technical side. We had here this daily downtrend line changing from lower lows and lower highs to a higher low and higher highs, supported by the 50-day moving average, MACD divergence on the daily also here, and then breaking also above the 200-day moving average, staying consistent with this higher highs, higher lows, and then finally breaking out. I was trading that one. I was a bit lucky with that, and I was taking profits at this here major resistance zone. We are currently higher again, so more profit would have been possible, or even taking all profits out at the all-time high peak here from this move. But yeah, that's unrealistically. I secured a nearly 10 risk-reward ratio profit at the $93 level per barrel. I think that was pretty sweet. You can see that in my last video. And yeah, but currently I wouldn't speculate on any more rising prices. It's pretty volatile, this market, and unpredictable how the things are going on. Currently at the 4-hour time frame, you can see we've seen this huge massive push, then a massive decline all the way back down to this monthly support zone, and then afterwards it started rising again. It's important for also the stock market, etc. As long as we stay elevated, it's a hard time probably for stocks. Let's continue with gold. Gold on the weekly time frame, we can see since we left behind the resistance at the $2,000 level per ounce, we have seen a nice uptrend, printing higher highs followed by higher lows. That's still intact, but here we could see a development that we see the first lower high in this long-lasting uptrend. And if we see here then maybe to break a lower low, then we will see probably a continuation of this corrective move all the way back down to this weekly orange uptrend line, and from there on I would expect then support and continuation of the overall trend, because I think the bullishness of gold hasn't finished yet, but for sure every uptrend needs also a pause before it can continue. On the daily time frame, one time frame lower, we can see that we are at the moment moving a bit sideways. First it seemed like we have seen the pullback, and then directly moving into the next uptrend, but here we see again it's declining. We're seeing falling prices again. The uptrend on the daily is still intact, supported by the 50-day moving average, so no major concerns right now. I wouldn't speculate on falling prices, but at the moment there's also no reason to bet on rising prices. The metal stocks can earn still a good amount of money because the margins are pretty high at that price metal level, sitting still above the $5,000 level per ounce. That's significant high, and most of the producers, even with raised energy prices, are earning good amount of money, but short term, the rising oil prices and stagnating metal prices can have a weight on the miners as well. On the 4-hour time frame, we can see it in more detail. Also here, the major moving averages are compressing and price is breaking below them to the downside, and normally what will follow is then a corrective move. Last we have seen a compression and a breakout to the upper side was in November 2025. Since then we have seen the major bull run peak, and yeah, that's for sure. We have seen that also here crossing bearish, but the uptrend stayed intact, so that's no guarantee, but often the first early sign of a turnaround from an uptrend to a downtrend. But as long as this daily secondary uptrend line holds, no major concerns. Everything below that speaks for a larger corrective move. I think that's everything said to gold. Let's continue with Bitcoin. With Bitcoin, I also want to start out on the weekly time frame. We can see since the last major high, we have seen nearly 80% decline, and since then higher highs followed by higher lows. That's stagnated here around the $126,000 level. It's the last major all-time high. We've seen then a breakdown, changing from higher highs and higher lows to lower lows and lower highs, and the downtrend is intact. We are nearing a very important support zone for Bitcoin. That's this monthly red solid uptrend line in combination with the weekly 200 moving average and the 0.618 Fibonacci retracement level, where price will probably find around that level a lot of co-influence for support, and I could imagine that after a small rally we will see a continuation down to that level, find a bottom there, and then start rising again into the next 4-year cycle. Normally behavior is 3 years uptrend, 1 year downtrend, so you can imagine where also on the timeline the bottom is, probably around October this year. And yeah, so far we are decoupling a bit from the stock market behavior. Normally Bitcoin acts also bearish if stocks and risk assets are bearish. This time it's a bit decoupling, probably because a lot of risk was already taken out of this market with these moves before. And if we drop now down to the daily time frame, you can see we have seen building a short-term bottom formation and starting to break higher. We can probably see or expect a move all the way back up to this daily white solid daily downtrend line, and from there on falling lower to the expected price level of maybe $55,000 per coin. I think that could be a couple $1,000 up or higher or lower. The bottom line for Bitcoin, maybe a small and short surprise to the downside, snapping back directly into that range again. So yeah, short term I would bet on rising prices, mid-term on again falling prices, and long term definitely on the long side here on Bitcoin. Yeah, we are at the moment testing the 50-day moving average, also support resistance at the moment. That has to get taken out to the upside for the small push higher and then declining again. Yeah, my plan for Bitcoin is at the moment not going long, not going short, but waiting for the final bottom to accumulate more Bitcoins and maybe a small term or short term long trade and riding that then higher, depending on how well the next uptrend structure evolves. And if you want to know how I manage that in the future, subscribe to the channel and don't miss a future video here. That's all I have for this weekend update, where I cover the main assets, and during the week I will upload a video where I go in depth into my single stock portfolio. If you don't want to miss that, subscribe to the channel, maybe activate the bell, then you get a notification if the next video gets uploaded. Till then, have a great start in the week. Bye bye.